Hello, my third grade leaders. Today, I want to talk about the main idea and supporting details of a section that we're reading in our Exploring Countries text for Japan. We're going to zoom over to pages 8 and 9. The title was cut off up here, but the title is about volcanoes and earthquakes. Right away, when we think about our title, we're going to know what the main idea is going to be about. It's going to be about earthquakes and volcanoes. But let's go ahead and read about this section. As we read about this, we want to think about what is the overarching idea as we read these next couple paragraphs. In this informational text, we also want to keep in mind that we want to read the fun fact and the did you know fact. That information is going to give us some information we want to know as we think about supporting details that support the main idea. All right, let's start reading. I'm going to start with the fun fact in the yellow caption. Can you guys go ahead and follow along with me? Fun fact. The forces that cause Japan's volcanoes and earthquakes also create hot springs. Heated underground water bubbles up to make pools. Many Japanese visit these springs to enjoy a relaxing soak. Let's keep reading the paragraph. Japan lies in an area where the Earth's crust cracks and slides. This constant movement creates volcanoes and earthquakes. About 60 of Japan's 150 volcanoes are active. They puff out steam, smoke, and ash. Let's look at the top of page 9. Most earthquakes in Japan are small and do not cause much damage. Large earthquakes strike every few years and can cause landslides and damage to buildings. An earthquake on an ocean floor is dangerous too. It can cause a powerful wave called a tsunami. A tsunami becomes a giant wall of water when it reaches land. Let's look at the did you know fact and the photograph. Take a moment to take a look at those photographs on page 8 and 9. On page 8, you guys can see the volcano, and on page 9, you guys can see the aftermath of an earthquake. Let's read the did you know fact. An earthquake happens somewhere in Japan every day. This country experiences up to 1,500 earthquakes each year. Wow, that's a lot of earthquakes. So the purpose of reading this text is to decide what the main idea is. When we think about the main idea, we want to look at the title, and we also want to think, what is this whole section mostly about? Take a moment to think about that. I know our title is called Volcanoes and Earthquakes, and most of this whole section has to do with how Japan has so many volcanoes and earthquakes due to how the Earth's crust cracks and slides. This happens a lot in Japan. So I'd go ahead and say that the main idea is about volcanoes and earthquakes. Do you agree? Next, we want to think about what are some supporting details that support the main idea. We've talked about the difference between interesting facts and important facts. An interesting fact is something that sounds like something that you didn't know before that is really astonishing or interesting. Whereas an important fact is a fact that's going to really prove and support the main idea. If our main idea is about how Japan, the area of Japan is in this fault line where volcanoes and earthquakes happen, then we want to find details that prove that. For example, that did you know fact. An earthquake happens somewhere in Japan every day. The country experiences up to 1,500 earthquakes each year. That's a really important fact that supports the main idea that this section is about volcanoes and earthquakes happening in Japan. Another detail that might support the main idea is the section on page 9. On page 9, they talk about other things that can happen to cities and towns, like landslides or other places that are having destruction because of the earthquakes. Those sentences on page 9 can help support the main idea that this section is mostly all about volcanoes and earthquakes happening in Japan. I hope this helps you decide about the difference between the main idea and supporting details. Remember, the main idea is the big idea that happens in this section. The supporting details support the main idea. Great job today, third graders. Thanks for watching. And don't forget to like and subscribe.